Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ult In Ten, and today with me I have someone very sexy, very good at this game, and is probably one of the most well-known supports in the game currently. It's Xpecial from TSM. Why don't you go ahead and say hi and tell us about yourself a little bit?
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for inviting me on the show, on this interview. And I wouldn't say sexy. I'll just go good support. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, I saw you
And
on State of the League. You looked pretty sexy.
alright, thank you. No homo though. No
Oh yeah,
homo.
no homo.
Alright.
And I want to talk about right here is that something really popular with the blue team is that they'll start off at the AD carry and the support will start off at their double golems. And I see you're invading. How do you feel about that? Like, is it an unfair advantage for you, or is it an advantage for purple team knowing that AD carry and support will most likely be there? Or give us your thoughts on that.
Well, the mini golems, taking mini golems, has only been around for maybe about a month, and it's really just another strategy at level one. It's teams have to consider at level one all the possible strategies that a team can be making. And when you're blue side, you can take mini golems. When you're purple side, you can invade, you can stop them, you can even maybe kill them at mini golems. So it just opens up a lot of opportunities for one team to just get ahead at the very beginning before the creeps even meet. So for me, I believe that it's very good. It just opens a lot of paths. I think it's very exciting to watch a level one and see where a team goes, how they do things, and what they plan out. And it really shows how experienced a team can be just by the level one play.
Yeah, that's very true. I actually never thought of it that way about opening up more paths for purple team to take into the enemy jungle. That's very true. And we're see you're running Alistair Tristana down here, which is, to me, a very, very aggressive lane. The Alistair CC is just ridiculous with Tristana's damage and her healing reduction for Soraka, as well as Sona, well, and Taric as well. How
Yeah.
do you kind of play early game with Alistair?
With when KX and I play Alistar, this happens that this game is not with KX, but when we run just Alistar, our goal, we have two goals. One is to deny CS, our second is to get kills. Kills aren't exactly easy to do. A team can play very passive bottom, and it makes it very hard to get those kills. But with Alistar Tristana, we have a lot of kill potential, especially when we have a level advantage. For example, at level 2, once you get two spells that CC plus a gap closer, you're pretty much going to get a kill if the other team isn't careful. And you have to take advantage of that. The best way is really just to get pushed away level 1. Most people don't consider that, but when you push away level 1, you get level 2 earlier. You get it a little bit earlier, a few creeps earlier. And that's enough to put you at that advantage. And you have the extra ability, extra spell, extra CC, where you can really do some damage.
Yeah, and we saw that you actually started pushing into Soraka. Well, I'll get to that in a second, but we see you pick up a double kill here. You kind of try to bait him back in, hitting level 3, popping your heal, and getting that amazing double kill. Um, but what I was saying earlier was is that you guys pushed the lane a little bit, and you started running towards Soraka when you're about to hit level 2, knowing that you can easily get a huge chain of CC on her, and since she's level 1, she's really squishy.
Exactly, yeah. I told the lane partner to push up a bit, and then I told her to get ready. I mean, we weren't exactly on the same page. We definitely could have gotten killed at the level 1 stage, but the idea is there, and just the coordination is not there. And playing AD support, it's not about the AD or the support. It's about how well the two can mesh together and how well you two coordinate.
Yeah, exactly. And well, one thing, sorry, this is like kind of off, but one thing I wanted to point out is that you warded pretty early. They do have a Kale jungle, and for everyone out there, this is a normal game, but it still shows like the ideas of behind a good support and a good Alistair really well. Is there a reason you early warded? Was it to kind of prevent Kale from early ganking since you didn't know exactly where she'd start?
Yes, because Tristana, her E automatically pushes whenever you kill a minion, it automatically pushes away. It means that we're going to likely be at their tower for a lot of the game. And when that happens, you are very vulnerable to a Kayle coming around from behind or whatever and being ganked. Even though Kayle is not exactly the strongest jungler, she has still a slow, and with a red buff, she can still kill you. And plus, Tristana in this game, she did not run flash, so she has no escape other than her jump. And in the early levels before level 6, she only has that jump to escape. So that ward is just a preemptive vision just for ganks. And oftentimes you have to consider the possibilities, and Kale ganking us was a high possibility, and that's why I warded so early.
Yeah, and you can also afford to ward early because since you guys are pushing your lane to get those early levels, you know that they're most likely going to come from jungle, and as well, you don't need to ward that second bush since you're pushing. So it kind of works out in the end in terms of using a ward.
Exactly. And
And
also I had CV.
yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to point out. You mentioned Tristana is not running Flash; she's running Heal and Ignite, and you're actually running CV. But with the changes to CV, how do you feel about it? I know the AD carry start to run heal a lot, which frees up the support using like exhaust or CV or something like that. How do you feel with those changes?
Well, I always love seeing multiple options to play the game, and the changes are just it really frees up bottom lane summers. You can really do whatever you want, and as long as it's reasonable, it pretty much works. Um, with CV, even though CV got nerfed pretty hard, one of the Riot uh, players who were actually balancing the game asked me about these changes, and I had a bit of input on it, and I really kind of pushed for that nerf because I felt that CV was it's too strong. It was needed on everybody. It gave too much map advantage, and yeah, especially in competitive play, and that just really was over the edge. But even still, CV is still really strong, and I still pick it up pretty much in every support game. So still strong.
Yeah, I know you were mentioning earlier, well, before we started recording, that vision in competitive play is so important. It's so crucial with invading, with protecting certain objectives, and CV is kind of that free little give you room in the sense of if you don't have a ward down. Um,
Yeah.
well, I have
Sorry.
a kind of a question that was kind of stemmed from the forums. Is that people notice that sometimes instead of getting a Philo Stone right away, like you still have a Fairy Charm, you buy a Heart of Gold instead of getting that Fairy Charm. What's your reasoning behind that?
Basically, Fieldstone gives me extra laning power, but Heart of Gold gives me advantage in a straight of engagement if we try to fight. So whenever I get Heart of Gold, basically it means I have enough, both have enough gold, and I feel that it'll give me advantage.
Yeah, you're mentioning about the team fight or the fighting sense, and I noticed on Alistair that you're running defensive masteries and really heavy defensive runes. Can you tell us what you're using?
Yes, I was using 0.237, I believe, in this game. Basically, I take everything from mana and mana regen in utility, and then I get a lot of pretty much every 8 HP. I think I also get Initiator for the extra movement speed, and then there's I also get the reduced minion damage because as Alistar, you pretty much tank a lot of minions. So all that plus I'm running 21 armor in runes with red and yellows. Blues are just magic resistance, and gold. I mean, quints are just gold pretend. So that gives me more survivability plus it gives me extra bonus gold and all that good stuff.
And speaking of your gold quintessences, gold per five quintessences, how do you feel about gold per five like seals or anything like that, like other runes? Do you think they're worth it, or I know the armor comes really in handy at bot lane when you're trying to be aggressive.
Yeah, I always considered it. I mainly get it if I pick up Soraka and I play player super passively. That way I get extra gold just even by sitting there, and I don't really get hit much. But on something like Alistar, something like Leona, even Sona, I usually would not opt for the gold. The mana regen, since the gold, because it's just not worth it. You're pretty much giving up armor or mana regen, sorry, and you really need those for early lane. Whereas gold, it's just more for late game, where it's just not as useful as just being able to be stronger in lane.
Yeah, I know currently a lot of people with just the high damage that AD carries can do, like for instance Graves and Severe. I know a lot of people are starting to focus down the support because most supports usually don't run, extra armor in their rune set or have defensive mastery. So I agree with you on that. It's really important that to counter that, you need to be kind of tanky. And we
Yeah,
noticed with your Alistair, you had, I believe, 900 health, 990 health at level 4, which is ridiculous amount of health. And not to mention, I think you have like 50-something armor as well. So you're pretty much
yeah,
like an unstoppable force or a movable object, if you want to say, in lane at the bottom or at bottom.
yeah. Especially with Alistar, having extra armor basically means that you can engage and come out ahead. And that's what you want. You want to be able to engage. You can't always get the kill, but when you engage, you want to come out ahead. And extra armor and survivability is it's gonna allow you to get ahead.
And speaking of that, I have a question here from the Reddit page from Aetherthought, and he asks, what are your favorite unconventional supports, and in what situations should they be used?
Well, I really liked Ash support. She's a very fun champion. You have a lot of poke, you have the extra clairvoyance pretty much, and then you have your arrow, which is one of the strongest global ultimates in the game. And for the longest time, she was considered OP simply because of that arrow. So the thing of Ash support is just she has no sustainability. You have very low survivability, and your CC is pretty much limited to your arrow. And well, sure you have slows, you're just not doing damage. And that's one of the trends we've been seeing with a lot of supports. They actually do damage. Alistar with max Q, you're doing 200, 300 AOE damage. With Sona, your poke does insane damage, and Ash kind of lacks that when you go support. So I think she can still work, but I think she needs a lot of refining. I still haven't played her too much, but Ash support, I'm looking forward to maybe being able to play her. But for now, I'm not going to be really playing her, especially in high stakes competitive games yet.
Yeah, you're saying about her ult being one of the strongest global ults in the game. It's also one of the best, if not the best, initiator as well.
Yeah.
And well, that kind of leads me to another question because you talked about Leona a little bit. By sorry if I get this name wrong, Nick Super DD or D Duper. Yeah, let's just leave it at League of
All
Legend
right.
forums. And he asks, "What's your stance on Leona support?" Like personally, I know I enjoy Leona support. It's so much fun to run, kind of like a kill lane again at bottom because that's what it feels like to me. And yeah, what's your stand on her?
Leona support, she's very niche. She works with certain champions. You're mainly gonna run her when, like you said, when you're going for like killing. Um, she definitely can work. I've seen it run several times. I've run it in scrims. Just haven't gotten to the point where I want to run her in competitive games yet. I still feel that Sona, Alistar are just better for now. But maybe Sona might be banned more often in upcoming tournaments, and that's where you see more of these other maybe non-standard supports.
Yeah, I know teams are starting to kind of like focus bans on the enemy team support. Like for instance, I casted a game recently with Goose versus EG, and Goose banned Soraka because they know how strong Nat Soraka is, or Nat Nguyen. I can't say his name correctly. I'm sorry. I'm white.
It's not Nguyen.
There we go.
It's Vietnamese, but yeah, okay.
And they're starting to focus bans on supports. It kind of
Mhm.
forces supports to learn new types of champions to play as a support.
And that's one of the problems with a lot of NA support players. They only play those few champions. When you go to EU, you have Leona, you have Alistar, you have Janna, and they're all played at really high levels. And that's one of the main problems with supports in NA. It's just they aren't as good, and that's a big problem, especially when you want to improve as a team.
Yeah, exactly. And people really underestimate like the value of a good support. Like you can completely see the difference in a team fight with the impact of the support if they know that champion really well versus just kind of with them.
Exactly.
Well, I'm gonna ask this last question that I got from the community just because it kind of leads into or it's kind of stems from what we've been talking about is from Surprise Pants from Reddit. He asks, "Do you think the 80 support meta will ever change?"
I'm not sure if it will change, but TSM has been working on. Okay, we have pretty much, I guess, theory crafted new strategies that will not evolve around a support and AD bottom. I won't give any details right now simply because it's still in preliminary stages and we're still working on it. but we really want to change the meta, and we really want to be able to have um, more impact on all our players, because simply put, we're not bad players. We're all really strong. At one point, all 5 of our members were our top 25 in Silica ladder, and that's pretty impressive if you think about how many players actually play the game.
Yeah, and it really catches teams off guard. Like in big tournaments, if you pull out some wild card setup you're running at bottom, that just blows them out of the water because they're not prepared for it.
Exactly. That's kind of, even though M5 still ran their AD support bottom, what they did was fairly unconventional, and being able to have those different strategies and surprise teams, that's a pretty big advantage, even if it's only for 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, before they have time to kind of get used to it and kind of figure out a strategy to counter it.
Exactly.
Um, we just saw a recent team fight here at bottom lane, and typically, what is your general goal in a team fight, or what's your general focus on in a team fight with Alistair? Like, what do you typically do, depending on? I'm assuming it really does depend on your makeup, but can you explain in different situations, like what your kind of goal or job is in a team fight?
Yeah. No problem. Well, Alistar, he has a CC, and that's pretty much what he does. Your goal is either to CC a target you want to kill, or take out an enemy carry for a couple seconds. Being able to headbutt them and then follow a pulverize, that's a good 4 or 5 seconds of CC. And you can either set up a kill, or you can just make sure a carry is not doing as much damage. Or in some cases, you can even push out targets like Cannon or Morgana, who really have to be in that fight, and you can make their ultimates just be a lot less painful by pushing them away. So it's really situational. In this game, I would definitely try to knock back the Morgana, but at the same time, I would also try to stun the KO and make sure that she dies before her bubble goes off, her ultimate. So it's really situational.
And I know you guys have Rivet on this team, which also provides another AoE stun. What about protecting Tristana? I mean, I'm assuming it strictly depends on team comp when you're going to protect just strictly like the AD carry if they're jumping on her. Um, like what type of champions do you usually, or team comps do you usually see where you have to protect the AD carry or your AD
Well,
carry?
yeah, there oftentimes people just will go for AD carry, and that's mainly against assassins, someone who can get close and just who will aim for your AD carry. And not every comp is like that. It happens a lot, but not every comp has someone who will go for your carry. Sometimes you just want to make sure that your AD is the one surviving the fight, and your AD is going to be the one that's killing everything. And mainly that's going to be late game. Your late game is when your AD carry is the strongest, and in late game, protecting your AD carry is going to be your #1 priority. So in some games, you're going to be protecting your AD. In some games, you'll be going for their AD, and in some games, you're just going to be making sure that a lot of people are CC'd.
What's actually this is something I'm noticing a lot more recently is there's a lot of AoE comps that people are running where they run like Sona GP or like Sona Fiddlesticks, Sona Brand, just some sort of or Mumu as well, Galio. What's kind of your thoughts on the AoE comp and like how do you typically counter that when playing a support? Because I know it limits what supports you can actually go for that.
Thing is, AoE comp has been around for pretty much the longest. It pretty much carried over from Dota. Back in beta, in open beta, around that time, that was when AoE comps were pretty much flavor of the month. And back then, if you didn't run AoE comp, you were screwed. Literally. In team fights, it all came down to who had more AoE and who had more farm to make your AoE do more damage. So it's not surprising to see AoE making a comeback because of the double WOTA. And it's not really about the support in those cases. It's about your top and mid having AoEs, having strong AoEs, and plus when they have WOTA, they just don't die nearly as quickly. Plus they have a lot of damage. So we TSM doesn't really play the AoE game, so I've never really been limited in that aspect. But I would still run Alistar, I would still run Janna, I would still run Sona, I would still run pretty much every champion that I would normally play, even in AoE comp, because it's not about the support in those cases.
Well, I think I didn't word the question correctly. I think that's my fault. is I meant like defending against an AoE comp. Like, is there any support you like running to kind of counter an AoE comp kind of team, like Janna to knock everyone back and reset the fight, or like a Mumu to allow your team to get out of their AoEs, something like that.
Okay, okay. Well, even in that case, Alistar, you have your own AoE plus you have a knockback. Um, you have Straka, you have your pretty much your ultimate kind of nullifies an ult. That's pretty much how it works. So even then, all the supports still have their own ways of defending against AoE. It's really about how you want to play that support. That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy playing support because every game is different. Even though you play the same champions maybe 4 or 5 times, your role in the game is different. And I find that to be very fun. And being able to adapt is not easy. And if it's not easy, then that means I'm doing something right, or at least I'm hoping I'm doing something right when I do well.
Yeah, on the back to the sense of the AoE teams, I know Maokai is a really strong pick against that with his AoE damage reduction. Do you ever play support Maokai? And do you like it at all or enjoy it?
I have never played Swarm Maokai. The only
Okay,
reason why that's the case is because Autumn plays Maokai. Whenever we get Maokai, we're gonna put Autumn on it because Strong Maokai is so strong right now. And why put him on a lesser role as say support when you can put him in the jungle and be a really strong jungle? So why put a strong jungler to be a mediocre support?
true. What about kind of to change the subject a little bit, map control? How do you know when to Oracle, or how do you know when to Oracle versus Pink Ward, and how do you go about controlling Dragon, controlling Baron, or controlling a lane in the sense of pushing it?
Well, a lot of that still comes down to coordination. Um, Talking with your AD and just being on the same page. So every time you push, you're basically saying the AD and I want to push because it will give us an advantage. Oftentimes, we won't take bottom tower, even if we're winning the lane, because when you take bottom tower, that means that you simply won't be able to deny them as hard. When they have the tower up, they pretty much have to sit at the tower, or they'll miss the XP. When the tower is down, they can pretty much they have all that room from the second tower to the first tower, where they can just farm freely, and it's really hard to kill them or harass them there because you're in their side of the river now. You're in their side of the map. So a lot of it comes down to coordination. With warding, it's just knowing when things come up, knowing right before dragon comes up. You want a minute beforehand. You want to have wards out, and you want to have pink ward once you decide to do it. And for oracles, it's mainly about map control. For only of course it's the whole thing's about map control, but um, when you take down the tower, the other team is forced to ward in place of that tower. They don't have vision. That tower is no longer there, and they don't have the vision. And with oracles, you deny them every time they want to ward in those areas for vision. Oracles is when you have advantage, and when you take their tower, you get an advantage, and you want to press that advantage by getting oracles and continuing to deny the vision.
Actually, with that, Alistair, I know he used to be a really popular roamer. Do you ever try to take that tower down just to go roam other lanes and just let your AD carry kind of stall the lane or freeze the lane?
I just don't feel that taking a tower is worth it in many cases. I agree, sometimes roaming is great, but you don't really need to take down the tower to roam. That's how I feel about that. And roaming is just it's a pretty high risk and pretty high reward. When you're out of lane, your AD can get zoned out. So you're pretty much giving up your bottom's farm in order to hopefully get a successful gank. So I oftentimes don't roam because we typically beat our lane and we don't really need to gank. So I can definitely see roaming outside being strong. It's just I don't. It's not what my team needs, and it's not exactly the best.
Yeah, and um, as well as by staying in your lane, you deny them CS, which denies them money, of course, and you can potentially get kills. So, I mean, even if you don't roam, it might be actually, well, it actually might be smarter to not roam, depending on the situation, by denying them levels as well.
Yes, yes, it's completely situational.
And I know you stream quite often. Do you want to kind of tell people what happens in your stream and like when you typically try to stream?
Yeah, right now I'm mainly leveling my EU account because TSMS actually has been playing on EU a lot more. So when I stream right now, it's mainly me just playing with some people on EU, just leveling accounts, and just getting ready to play on ranked and playing in the ranked teams. So right now, it's not exactly the ideal time to watch my stream. It's gonna be rather boring until I get stomped. But even then, I always kind of talk about my game. I kind of have some commentary, even if it's not in-depth, high-level commentary. It's still commentary about my game. And if you guys are if you guys enjoy that, then definitely check out my stream. But oftentimes, you guys often see me as a huge support player. But I've always played AP carries, AD carries. I pretty much play every champion that doesn't go in the jungle. So I'm not too bad in those roles, and not always a support player. So if you guys like any champion and you guys like watching me, then feel free to watch the stream.
Yeah, I know I played against you, well, in this season, and you were playing like Ari middle, and you actually had a really good Ari. So, I mean, you can definitely play other roles as well as besides support.
Oh
So yeah,
yeah.
people, you guys should definitely make sure to check his stream out, as well as his Twitter. I know he posts there quite often with just like funny news or telling you that he's streaming. And also, you should check out solomid.net. They have, well, you guys should know this already because they have probably the best guides out there for competitive play. And if you're trying to learn how to play champions better, there's usually some things written up as well as blogs and guides. And you guys should definitely check that out if you haven't. This is pretty much the end. We've been talking over the the victory screen for a little bit, but that's all good as long as it's good talking. Is there anything you want to say before we end the show?
Yeah, I mean, a quick add-on to your about Solomid. It's we really put a lot of time into making our guides, not just for uh other players, it's for new players too. If you guys don't know anything about Champion, our guides are there, and we pretty much spent a lot of time both writing them and updating them. In fact, Andy was here. I'm not sure you heard him earlier. It's like he was just telling me, "Yo, Alex, go update your guide," and I was like, I couldn't say anything because I was doing an interview. So yeah, we really put in our time to make sure our guides are updated. And after this, I'm gonna be putting up a guide. And then also, so mid great site, a lot of vlogs, a lot of blogs, whatever, anything about our team, all check it out there. And one last thing, I just want to make a quick shout out to all my friends, all my fans, my teammates, and a small shout out to Uni. And that's it.
Okay. Yeah, definitely check out that website. And you should definitely pay attention to TSM over the next coming months. I know they're practicing very hard, and as you know, they're transferring to the EU servers, so you get to see some really good games over there. I know they have quite a better competitive scene than North America, but it would be definitely interesting to see once they get their accounts up to level 30 to see them play. And that is it for Ult In Ten. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.